Now, China says the United States is damaging the mutual trust between both countries. Foreign Minister Wang Yi pointed to Washington's criticism of Beijing over the treatment of Uighurs in Xinjiang, as well as issues in Hong Kong. Mr. Wang has stressed there are deep-seated issues that need to be addressed and resolved by both sides.
这种近乎偏执的行为，在国际交往中实属罕见，严重损害了中美之间得来不易的互信根基，也严重削弱了美国自身的国际信誉。
And for more on the Chinese perspective on the Uyghur and Hong Kong issues, Olivia Xiong joins us now from Beijing. Oli, harsh words indeed from the Chinese foreign minister on the U.S. damaging mutual trust. Why is this coming at this juncture?
Well, I think this just really points to the growing tension between China and the U.S. and how complicated the relationship has become, even as both sides try to negotiate an end to its ongoing trade war, and even as we are seeing reports about an imminent phase one trade deal. But it really just shows how tensions between the two countries have grown really over the past year and a half, spilling into numerous areas. And Mr. Wang there saying that there are deep-seated issues that need to be resolved. And Mr. Wang said that the U.S. had damaged the hard-won foundation of mutual trust between the two countries, pointing to recent actions by the U.S., namely legislation that had been signed into law in support of Hong Kong protesters, and even more recently a separate bill that questions and is calling for greater scrutiny over Beijing's treatment of Uighurs and other Muslim ethnic minorities in the western Xinjiang region. Now, all this has angered China, and China is accusing the U.S. of meddling in its internal affairs. It's also seen by China, and Mr. Wang said that Washington was suppressing China in several fields, including the economy, trade, as well as technology. And he said that China is willing to resolve its differences with the U.S. through dialogue, but it would not stand for what it says are so-called unilateral sanctions and any acts of bullying. Now, China in the past has tried to separate any of its trade tensions with the other issues that it's having with the U.S., whether it's related to Hong Kong or Xinjiang. But last week, we had also heard the foreign ministry say that it is not possible for U.S. actions to not affect, cooperation in important areas between the two countries.
Ollie, just quickly, has China confirmed news about a consensus being reached on the phase one trade deal?
Well, so far, the news about this phase one trade deal has been from the U.S. side. Namely, we had seen U.S. President Donald Trump tweet that they are very close to a big deal. But so far, from Chinese media and Chinese authorities, they have not released any information about this. They have largely been quite silent. The Global Times editor-in-chief says this really just points to how this is a very delicate situation. And when asked about this today, the foreign ministry said that China was committed to resolving the trade dispute with the U.S., but that this agreement had to be mutually beneficial. But there was no confirmation on whether both sides had indeed come to some sort of an agreement on a phase one trade deal, or what the terms of the potential deal are, even though reports suggest that these include China agreeing to buy $50 billion worth of U.S. agricultural products, which is double the amount that it bought back in 2017, as well as the U.S. holding off of new tariffs, as well as rolling back existing tariffs. And the date that we are looking out for is December 15, this Sunday, when new tariffs from both sides are expected to come into effect. But so far, there's been no confirmation from the Chinese side on whether it will go ahead with these new tariffs on Chinese goods. And these are all issues that have been points of contention in trade negotiations. But if we were to try and understand China's silence, we can look at a Global Times report, Global Times being a Chinese media affiliated with the People's Daily, which is run by the Communist Party. And it did say that while it welcomed Trump's announcement that both sides want want a deal. It also recognized that progress on trade talks cannot count unless a final agreement is signed.
All right, many thanks for that. Olivia Xiong speaking to us from Beijing.